Live from Bryant Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Well, good morning, everybody, and happy game day. I'm Gary Harris, live inside our WVUA 23 studios at Bryant Denny Stadium, and you're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff. Let's go. As always, we begin with our Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama headlines.
Well, after a year of COVID restrictions, Bryant Denny Stadium is back at full capacity. Now, the last time that was allowed was November 23rd, 2019 against Western Carolina. Later in the program, we'll hear from Mayor Walt Maddox, Tuscaloosa's mayor, about staying healthy today and a few things for the fans and businesses to remember as they conduct their game day activities. And Alabama has an impressive history against FCS teams, outscoring opponents 259-29 in their last 5 matchups against an FCS program. Bama looks to add to that number today against the Mercer Bears out of the Southern Conference. The last time these two teams met was back in 2017 when Jalen Hurts ran the Alabama offense and the Crimson Tide cruised 56-0. Well, Alabama is expected to have at least one new starter for Week 2. We'll discuss the players that could be filling the void because of Chris Allen's injury, and we will certainly get into that. We'll also visit with new Alabama swimming and diving coach Margo Geer, Docu-series producer Grant Guffin, who takes a look at what today's game is worth to Mercer Football. Plus, we'll talk with Bryce Koon, the color commentator for the Bears, in our Behind Enemy Lines segment. And now an update on linebacker Chris Allen. He had successful foot surgery this week and is set to begin his rehab immediately. But one of the main guys expected to fill his spot, sophomore Drew Sanders, is ready to go. Sanders came to Tuscaloosa as the #1 player in the state of Texas, according to 247 Sports, and a composite 5-star recruit in the 2020 rankings. The 6'5", 240-pound linebacker has developed his role in the Tide's young outside linebacking rotation since arriving on campus, and his work ethic has not gone unnoticed. Here's what his teammates have to say about Drew Sanders.
He's different. You know, he comes to work every day. His work ethic is incredible. He plays hard, physical. I'm telling you, that linebacker position is really, really tough. The depth at it is amazing.
You know, Drew is a really hardworking guy. Ever since the time that I got here, you know, Drew has been doing a phenomenal job of, you know, in the weight room, on the field, in the playbook. But not only Drew, everybody, every single person in that outside linebacker group, I believe that if they step on that field, they'll do a really great job of, you know, filling in that place for Chris.
And 10.
And besides Drew Sanders, Chris Braswell and freshman Dallas Turner are expected to play bigger roles as edge rushers. Braswell, number 41, was a terror in the A-Day game. He had 3 sacks back in the spring. Well, today's opponent is not the juiciest on the Alabama schedule, but FCS opponents like Mercer often result in some of the most memorable midweek press conferences of the Nick Saban era. In 2011, Alabama's head football coach famously used a tin horn metaphor before the Tide took on Georgia Southern this week, and he is wound up again as this. He gave us another classic, not an original, but a callback. Following Wednesday's practice, Coach Saban spoke with reporters on his Zoom call and warned against the dangers of complacency and of the 2 words he's made most famous, rat poison.
We basically played one half of one game. All right, we went ahead 27-0 in the game. And then it was basically 17-16 after that with 2 stops inside the 5-yard line. And, you know, so we didn't maintain our intensity in the game. So we were affected by the scoreboard. So we haven't proven that we can play for 60 minutes. Then we come out on Monday and really not ready to practice, I guess because of respect we have for the opponent. I don't really know all that, or maybe it's what they read on social media or in the media or whatever after one half of a game this season. And, you know, then it was hot yesterday. So, you know, so we got every external factor in the world that is affecting our ability to maintain intensity and play the way we need to play and practice the way we need to practice to improve.
And here's a name that Bama fans are probably going to recognize. Stay with me just a moment. Dylan Fromm. That's right. Fromm, the younger brother of former Georgia quarterback and one-time Alabama commit Jake Fromm. Now, he's also the twin brother of current Auburn Tigers tight end Tyler Fromm. Dylan Fromm saw his first action in last week's 69-0 blowout of Point University, entering the game in the third quarter, and he threw a touchdown pass. Well, if you're looking at the numbers for Mercer and Alabama, it's not pretty if you're a Bears fan. These two teams have played 3 times, 1939, 1940, and most recently 2017. Alabama has outscored Mercer by a combined 96-0. And the Tide, if you're thinking about an upset, has won 98 straight games versus unranked teams. 15 straight wins for the Tide overall, 9 more than the next best current national winning streak. Well, game time today is 3 o'clock. And let's get our first look at our game day forecast. CTKO's Gracie Dinkos is in the Weather Center to give us the latest on what appears to be a beautiful day, Gracie, for football.
Absolutely, Gary. It is beautiful. Couldn't be more perfect weather today. We're looking out live outside of Bryant Denny Stadium right now at the Walk of Champions. And temperature of 81, pretty nice and comfortable outside. It's not feeling very humid at all. If we look at this radar, we're seeing clear conditions, no cloud in the sky or rain at all, which is what we love to see for game day, for tailgating, and everything else we're going to be doing outside today. Temperatures right now across central Alabama, 81 in Tuscaloosa, 82 in Jasper, 85 in Birmingham. We're only going to get up to the upper 80s today, and I'll have more on your game day forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Gary?
Thank you, Gracie. We look forward to another update soon. Well, coming up on CTKO, we will highlight quarterback Bryce Young in his first college start against the Miami Hurricanes. He lit it up. Also, hear what head men's basketball coach Nate Oates had to say about Namari Burnett and his future following recent knee surgery. And later on, our own Matthew Travis goes behind enemy lines and talks to Mercer insider Bryce Koon about what we can expect to see from the Bears this afternoon. You know, they run that triple option, which can be tricky. More Crimson Tide Kickoff right after this.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Alabama's Bryce Young was named the O'Brien National Quarterback of the Week following his impressive performance at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta against the Miami Hurricanes. This is one of 4 awards he earned in his first game as the Crimson Tide starter. He also earned a spot on the Davey O'Brien Awards Grade 8, the Manning Award Stars of the Week, as well as the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. How about that? Well, so much for high expectations. Bryce Young was even better than what many of us thought he would be against Miami. This one sequence in the third quarter kind of sums up the day of frustration for Manny Diaz and the Hurricane defense. After the Crimson Tide defense stopped what would have been a touchdown on 4th and goal, Young threw a 94-yard strike to Ohio State transfer wide receiver Jamison Williams. Young broke a record at Alabama by being the first QB to throw 4 touchdowns in his debut start, surpassing Mac Jones and the legendary Joe Namath, 2 pretty good quarterbacks. This is nothing short of normal for the Alabama team as they continue to raise the bar and continue to even top the level of the bar they've set previously. On 3rd down, Bryce was particularly efficient, which is what it takes to be a great quarterback. 8 of 10 for 157 yards, and 7 of his throws on 3rd down resulted in a first down. Let that sink in. And as we said, he becomes the best debut quarterback in Alabama football history, throwing for well over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. He was spectacular. And since we're talking quarterbacks, Mac Jones, last year's starter, will be the starting QB for the New England Patriots after the team cut former Auburn star and NFL MVP Cam Newton. Jones knows he has some big shoes to fill, not only following Cam, but of course, obviously, the great legendary Tom Brady just kind of still hovers over Gillette Stadium, even though he's now down in Tampa.
You know, I just got to be prepared and focus on what I need to focus on and just try and block out any distractions and just, like I always say, be a good teammate, just roll with the punches. Everything's not going to be perfect, and you're just trying to have to play each play and move on.
And a game that Bama fans are going to be interesting is brewing up in New England. Jones will get his first test in a Patriots home opener against the Miami Dolphins, and who else but Tua Tagovailoa will lead the Dolphins into Gillette Stadium. Other built by Bama players in the game, Dolphins rookie receiver Jalen Waddle, a top 10 pick in last April's draft, and Patriots running back Damian Harris. Dante Hightower plays for the Patriots as well. And good news for fans in Alabama, the Dolphins versus Patriots is a regional telecast, but when you got Tua taking on Mac, you add it to the regional lineup in the state of Alabama. It'll be available on all the CBS affiliates across the state beginning Sunday afternoon at 3:25. And the NFL season kicked off on Thursday night as the reigning world champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosted the Dallas Cowboys, and a pair of former Bama stars shined in the opener. Cowboys receiver Amari Cooper, 13 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's what you call blowing up in fantasy. Cowboys defensive back Trayvon Diggs was also impressive as he got an interception off the GOAT, Tom Brady, but the Bucs would win on a final play field goal, 31-29. Several other Bama stars will be in action on Sunday. Of course, they got more of their alums playing in the NFL than any other school, including, as we mentioned, Tua and Matt going head-to-head, and Jalen Hurts getting the start for the Eagles in Atlanta against the Falcons. And CTKO rolls on. I'm Gary Harris here at Bryant Denny Stadium in our WVUA 23 studio. And this football stadium, Bryant Denny, will be full capacity for the first time since 2019 when Alabama takes on Mercer later on this afternoon. CTKO's Tatum Vaught is live outside Reese Pfeiffer Hall, where those fans are beginning to get together and enjoying a beautiful fall game day tailgate for the first time since 2019. Tatum?
Thanks, Gary. I'm right here out beside the quad where I'm with 2 big Alabama fans who are so happy that tailgating is back. I'm with Brady and Jacob. So, Brady, can you tell me how excited you are that it's back to a sense of normalcy here on an Alabama game day with tailgating?
It's just great to see everybody out here today, just celebrating the Tide and, just being a sense of a community again, really. Everybody's out here just having fun, selling programs, everything else. Everybody's just connecting in a way that we haven't seen in the past year and a half. So, it's just great to see everybody out here, just having fun.
Definitely. And Jacob, can you tell me how important tailgating is to a game day atmosphere and what that feels like for it to be back?
Oh, tailgating is the most important thing out there. I mean, that's how everyone gets up, they get going. Everyone wakes up excited to be out here and see their friends and have a good time. And I think it really brings about the atmosphere of us going in there to win and kick some butt.
Awesome. And then what are both of your tailgating plans today?
Oh, man.
We're going to hop around. We got a couple to go to. We're going to our NBAA tailgate, and then we're probably going to stay with some friends.
That's the PG version, I guess.
Awesome. Well, live from Reese Pfeiffer, I'm Tatum Vaught for Crimson Tide Kickoff. Back to you, Gary.
Roll Tide!
Roll Tide.
Thank you, Tatum, and I promise you guys, we appreciate the PG version. Keep it right there. We don't want to go past PG on this show. In fact, I like it to be a G-rated show myself. All right, when we come back, we'll go around the SEC for a sneak peek at the other games taking place today. Also, Tuscaloosa native Brian Robinson is now the starting running back for the Crimson Tide. Up next, hear from somebody that had a first-hand look at the work, hustle, and determination that helped Robinson reach his goal. More on B-Rob. We'll be right back.
I don't know exactly where it started. Like growing up, I've always seen the Alabama A, the Crimson Tide, the Elephant. I've always seen, just everything just regarding just University of Alabama. I worked my whole life, for this opportunity. I did everything I could up to this point to put myself in this position.
I love that guy. Covered him since he was in the 10th grade. Welcome back to CTKO. I'm Gary Harris. It's a common goal. Kids grow up watching Alabama football and dreaming of one day playing for the Crimson Tide, and most, of course, don't achieve that. But running back Brian Robinson successfully climbed the ladder from youth football in Tuscaloosa to Hillcrest High School to now the starting running back at Alabama. CTKO's Matthew Travis recently had the opportunity to talk with somebody that has firsthand insight of what helped B-Rob realize his lifelong dream.
Hey, Gary. Last week I spoke to Forrest Mullins, who is the cornerbacks and strength and conditioning coach at Hillcrest High School. I spoke to him about Alabama starting running back Brian Robinson, who graduated from Hillcrest back in 2017, and Mullins told me that he knew Robinson was destined for greatness since he was at Hillcrest. With Brian Robinson, and he also told me about what seeing guys like Brian Robinson doing what they're doing at one of the highest levels of the sport does for his current players and the inspiration it gives to them. I can barely hear them.
Huge, and I use him and Jacquez Jones, who's now the linebacker at Kentucky. I use both of them as examples all the time, maybe not on a daily basis, but you know, it never fails that they come out. I definitely think they're impacting these young kids today in a positive way.
Yeah, Mullins told me that he knew Robinson was destined for greatness since he was a freshman at UA, and he still texts Robinson every time before a game, and they still have that special connection. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Matthew Travis.
Thank you, Matt. Good piece. And I'll say it again. I love to cover all these guys at Alabama, but when you cover somebody through high school and then watch them come play for the Crimson Tide and then reach this goal, and there's a number of players on the roster that I covered in high school, that's special. You really enjoy that. And I'm glad to see B-Rob get his shot as a starter. I think he's going to play in the NFL. All right, thank you, Matt, for that report. And this is Alabama versus Mercer, but around the country, that's not creating that much buzz. Let's be honest, Alabama's a 56.5-point favorite. But there are some other matchups in the SEC that have a lot more interest. Here's Dylan Morgan with our Around the SEC report.
One of the themes we heard Tide head coach Nick Saban talk about early in the week is focus. Move on from an impressive win in week 1, even when media and the fans can't stop talking about it. The Georgia Bulldogs face that challenge too, but swagger may not be the biggest hurdle to overcome against UAB. Following their season-opening win over number 3 ranked Clemson Tigers, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs didn't have much time to celebrate afterwards, as they are now dealing with an outbreak of COVID-19 within the program. Despite having more than 90% of athletes vaccinated, the Bulldogs are experiencing their highest spike of cases, which will leave 4 players sidelined for today's game against the UAB Blazers. Texas and Arkansas used to play every season in one of the country's oldest rivalry games from 1932 to 1991, including the historic 1969 Game of the Century until Arkansas left for the SEC. Since then, the two teams have only played each other 5 times, with their last matchup being a 31-7 Razorback victory in 2014. And with the Longhorns set to join the SEC, look for this rivalry to be renewed. After LSU's loss to UCLA last week, Ed Orgeron and the Tigers will return home to take on McNeese State, who are led by someone who their head coach should be very familiar with, as Cody Orgeron, son of the Tigers head coach, will start at quarterback as his Cowboys travel to Baton Rouge. And let's just say, Coach O has been anticipating this matchup for a while.
Playing against Cody is going to be pretty cool. I know he's going to be talking some smack. I know he'll come to the sideline and talk a little smack. He knows all our players. He's excited to play in Death Valley. Once the game starts, it's going to be competition. I'm the head coach at LSU, and he's the quarterback at McNeese. We both got to do what we can to win the game.
LSU's Orgeron won't have to win this battle by himself. Earlier this week, running back Trey Bradford re-enrolled in school and rejoined the football team. It's unclear what role, if any, that the former Oklahoma Sooner will have today against McNeese State. But that'll wrap things up for Around the SEC. For CTKO, I'm Dylan Morgan.
Thanks, Dylan. Nice update. Here's the schedule, and you can see that Auburn and Alabama State and South Carolina and East Carolina. Auburn and Alabama State actually going this evening. South Carolina, East Carolina underway. Tennessee and Pittsburgh underway already as well. And here's a look at the rest of the games. Florida and South Florida in-state matchup. Georgia better watch out for UAB. Now I'm telling you, over between the hedges, UAB can make that game competitive. Texas A&M travels to Colorado. Texas and Arkansas, that's a big one tonight in Fayetteville. Mississippi State won last week, but that's about all you can say against Louisiana Tech. They play a really good NC State team tonight. Ole Miss and Austin Peay. The Rebels shouldn't have much trouble with the Governors. And we've got a SEC matchup. Kentucky opening at home against Missouri. LSU and McNeese tonight. Vanderbilt trying to bounce back after losing at home to East Tennessee State. They're at Colorado State later on this evening. And coming up on CTKO, one of Alabama basketball's highly touted transfers suffers a major injury setback. And Crimson Tide swimming and diving is closing in on the start of another season. We'll tell you the biggest thing that gives head coach Margo Geer reason for optimism. Hear our interview with her coming up next. Well, one of Birmingham's top barbecue restaurants is offering a sweet deal for fans all day today. Customers that mention the name of Tide defensive tackle DJ Dale will get a free small banana pudding dessert with purchase of an entree. Dale is Saw Barbecue Student Athlete of the Week, and fans get the sweet rewards for his hard work. And welcome back to CTKO. I'm Gary Harris inside our WVUA 23 studio situated inside Bryant Denny Stadium. The Alabama swimming and diving team ready to dive into the season, and with all the recent success, they're hoping to build on top of that inside and outside of the pool. New Alabama swimming and diving head coach Margo Geer talks with CTKO's Brianna Gregory on the optimism for the season.
Thanks, Gary. Alabama swimming and diving team opens their new season in 2 weeks. They're excited and ready to compete. Coach Geer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Going into your first full season as head coach, give me your biggest reason for optimism. From winning 2 SEC titles amongst other wins earlier this year, wins at the Olympics this summer, it's almost like you all never stopped competing. So how does those wins carry over to this season?
Yeah, we're coming off of a really incredible year for our program, both on the men's side and the women's side. I think really trying to just build on the success we had and really, aim for new heights here this fall and into the championship season. Like you said, we've got our first meet coming up, so really just looking forward to competing and getting our team, united before that first meet. And we've got all kinds of great newcomers, new faces to the program, and then we've got a lot of great veterans that bring a lot of experience. So really excited to see what they can do, and starting things off in 2 weeks. Just really excited to get it going.
Gotcha. Being a member of the USA national team, competing at a high level to being UA's swimming and diving team head coach, how would you describe your coaching style?
My coaching style, I would say, I really try to just connect with the kids. I really try to form some strong relationships. I think at the root of high performance are, strong relationships, and the more that you have, those deep connections with the kids, the more they're willing to push through and really, work together with you to aim for their goals and things like that. So I would say, I really try to create a good relationship with each kid, and then I really try to get an idea of where they can go and help them really reach their full potential in the water and outside, and into any endeavor they want to do, after swimming.
And what is some advice you can give to your players for this upcoming season, and what expectations do you have for the team this year?
I think advice, we're really messaging to our team, just taking things one day at a time. I think there's been a lot of, different factors beyond our control in the past year or two with different things going on, but really just taking things one day at a time, building into the season. And, I think that's probably the biggest advice. And then expectations, I think we're really just trying to create our culture and really create our story here and getting into a program that, like you said earlier, like we've had some great success, but really trying to make this season our own and write our own story here this season.
Well, Coach Geer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Alabama swimming and diving team competes against Delta State on Friday, September 24th at home. The relay begins at 2:30 p.m. at the Alabama Aquatic Center. Let's go and show support. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Brianna Gregory.
Thank you, Brianna, and thank you, Coach Geer. Excited about this team. They've got a chance to be really, really good. Well, earlier this week, head coach Nate Oates confirmed bad news that Alabama men's basketball player Namari Burnett suffered a knee injury that will keep him sidelined for the upcoming season. The 6'4", 190-pound sophomore guard underwent successful surgery on his right knee Tuesday afternoon. He's expected to make a full recovery. Surgery was performed by Dr. Lyle Kane of Andrews Sports Medicine at St. Vincent's in Birmingham. Burnett transferred to UA from Texas Tech. He's a former McDonald's All-American and was expected to compete for a starting position with the Tide. Here is part of an official statement from Alabama head basketball coach Nate Oates on Burnett's season-ending injury. Quote, "I know Namari's work ethic combined with the fact that he will be surrounded by the best of the best when it comes to our medical staff and team doctors gives me complete confidence that he will come back stronger and better than ever," end quote. Well, Alabama women's basketball conference schedule has been released. The 16-game slate kicks off at Tennessee on December 30. The Vols are ranked 18th in ESPN's Way Too Early Top 25. The Crimson Tide is in the way too early top 25 poll. Alabama reached the women's NCAA tournament last season for the first time since 1999. The Crimson Tide beat North Carolina in the first round before suffering a loss to Maryland in the second round. And coming up on CTKO, what is it like being an FCS school traveling to play the #1 ranked FBS team in the country? Reporter Tatum Vaught tells us about a new docu-series that focuses on what makes today's game worth it for Mercer Football. And we'll hear more about Henry To'oTo'o's immediate impact on the Alabama defense and how he has earned his teammates' respect since arriving on campus from Tennessee. Stay tuned. More Crimson Tide Kickoff right after this.
You know, you come in here with a group of team that's been together, and you're the new guy. I didn't really come in with the mindset to be the defensive caller, to be the signal caller. I wanted to be that guy that they can trust.
How big time is that? You transfer in from Tennessee, and right off the bat, Pete Golding and Nick Saban make you the defensive signal caller as a transfer. To'oTo'o proving why. He had an outstanding debut for the Crimson Tide, 7 tackles, and helped the defense hold Miami to 13 points last week. To'oTo'o went down in the third quarter with an elbow injury. However, he says that he's going to be fine. He just a scare, but Coach Saban said he'll be okay going forward. Alabama welcomes that news. Well, some of you may remember the documentary films made around 10 or 11 years ago about Coach Saban and Alabama football. Well, the writer and producer Grant Guffin is back again with another project. He's had a number of them, but this time from the perspective of Mercer Football. It's interesting. CTKO's Tatum Vaught gets the scoop on the docu-series in the making. Here's her interview with Grant Guffin.
Thanks, Gary. Grant Guffin works for a production company in Memphis. His current project is spending the season with Mercer Football and Bears head coach Drew Cronick for a docu-series that gives him a unique perspective going into today's game at Bryant Denny Stadium. Grant, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can you give us an overview of the project?
Sure. The project is tentatively titled Paycheck Game, and really it's more so a focus on Mercer's game against Alabama and how it came to be and their preparation for it, and then, of course, the game itself. And we'll tell the story of the entire season. Hopefully, Mercer ends up winning their Southern Conference. But mainly we're focused on this FCS versus FBS matchup. You know, a small team like Mercer that just brought football back in 2013. And now they're going to take on the defending national champions in front of 101,000 people. The people involved, the coach, how they prepare for that, how the players prepare, what they feel about going into a matchup against such a talented Alabama football team. And I'm interested to see what happens on Saturday.
Definitely, me too. So obviously, Alabama fans don't get as excited for these matchups with the smaller schools. So what made you, as an Alabama fan yourself, want to explore the perspective of the smaller school?
Well, I think it's when I became the parent of 2 boys. And when you become a parent, as any parent knows, you see the world from a different perspective. And so seeing these FCS versus FBS matchups, I knew that those were the sons of parents going out there. While these matchups typically from the perspective of the Power 5 school and fans, they're games that they easily dismiss. Sometimes you think, well, I don't know if I want to go to that game or maybe even sell my tickets, or if I'm going to go, I'm going to leave at halftime. You know, they're sort of throwaways because they're not big intra-conference matchups or matchups against a powerful non-conference opponent. So I started to think about the game from the perspective of the smaller school. How does a coaching staff prepare for a game when they know that at almost every position their personnel is overmatched? How do they plan for that when it really isn't the most important game on their schedule? It's certainly the biggest stage, but the goal for them is to win their conference. So do they throw everything that they've got out there? Or do they hold some things back for their conference opponents? I was curious how the players felt about it. You know, were they overwhelmed by that thought, or were they really excited about the opportunity that it presented? And so, that's what intrigued me about it. And so we set off to try to find some interesting matchups, and this Mercer versus Alabama one, with Alabama coming off the national championship, just jumped up to the top of the list to us.
Definitely. And you kind of led into my next question, but can you expand on what kind of mindset Mercer has coming to Tuscaloosa and having to play the #1 team? We know that they get a big check, but what else are the Bears looking to accomplish playing in Bryant Denny this evening?
Yeah, that's been probably the most fascinating aspect of this, is to just sit in the room, which I literally just left the coach's office with their offensive coordinator, talking about what their strategy is going to be for the game, what the thought process is at this point, just a little over, hours away from kickoff. But anyway, it's fascinating to see that the players are excited about the challenge. They know it's going to be a huge stage with 101,000 people that are not cheering for them. They know that they're going to be going up against a team that is NFL talent all over it, and against a head coach that is possibly the best that the college game has ever seen. And so they kind of go back and forth between being really excited about the opportunity. They say, we're competitors, and so we're going to step out there and we're going to compete. And while the odds are that it may not go in our favor, we're going to put everything we have out there and be satisfied knowing that we did the best that we could against Alabama.
Well, Grant, I definitely look forward to seeing this production. It's an awesome and unique concept that I think a lot of people will really enjoy. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today and being a guest on Crimson Tide Kickoff. Hopefully you'll get some great content from the game this evening.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's been a lot of lead up to this point, and I know that the players are ready for the game to happen. Win or lose, they just are ready to compete. I know Alabama always is ready to compete, and so we're just excited at this point to see how it plays out. And we'll be down on the sideline in the locker room with the Mercer team to see it all up close. So I hope it makes for a great show.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Grant. For CTKO, I'm Tatum Vaught. Back to you, Gary.
Thank you, Tatum. That is a great interview, some terrific insight. Now, a lot of you folks will remember Grant Guffin from the film I talked about earlier, Game Changer with Nick Saban back in 2010 or so. It played in theaters all around the state, was a big hit. Now, Paycheck Game is the name of this docu-series. The plan is to make it 4 parts. He's already shot the first episode. This is going to be the second episode. The trick is to get one of the streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Apple TV to pick the show up. If he's able to do that, Grant says the Mercer docu-series could be available as early as December. Well, make no mistake about the game. Mercer's facing long odds against the Crimson Tide, but second-year head coach Drew Cronick is excited for his team. Mercer will reportedly receive more than $600,000 for playing today's game, hence Paycheck Game. That's according to Travis Ryer of Bama Online. Coach Cronick says the challenge for his team goes beyond the top-ranked Crimson Tide. His squad will also have to deal with the crowd at Bryant Denny Stadium. They've never seen anything like it. Mercer didn't play football a full schedule last fall. They played 3 games, and they played again in the spring. So they're getting back acclimated to playing, and they've never played, like I said, in front of a crowd like this. But today also represents the ultimate measuring stick for Mercer football.
There's a lot of kids that think they deserve a chance to play in the NFL and all this other stuff. That's what you got this weekend. You got a chance to go see if you measure up. And if you don't go out there and do exactly what you're supposed to do and play fundamentally sound and do it exactly right, then it gets ugly real quick. But I want them to enjoy it. I don't want them to be uptight about it. I don't want them to be worried about things. I just want them to go play to the best of their ability.
And there's some Alabama talent on the Mercer roster that you can see in action today. Number 55, Marquez Thomas, freshman linebacker from McAdory. Number 88, Jalen Peterson, freshman wide receiver from Ramsey High School in Birmingham. Number 41, Zach Hopkins, sophomore linebacker from James Clemens High School in Madison. And number 31, Luke Ward, a redshirt junior defensive back from Atmore. More Crimson Tide Kickoff is on the way, so you keep it right here on WVUA 23. We're back after this. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris inside our WVUA 23 studios inside Bryant Denny Stadium. It's time now for one of our most popular segments, Behind Enemy Lines. Gives you perspective on the game from the other side. Earlier this week, our Matthew Travis spoke with Bryce Koon, who is the color commentator for Mercer Radio, and got some interesting information on the Bears. Matthew?
Hey, Gary, that's right. Earlier this week, I spoke to Bryce Koon, who is a color commentator for Mercer Radio, and I spoke to him about today's game. And when I asked him what it was going to be like for Mercer to go up against the reigning national champions and current #1 team in the nation, Koon said it was going to be an awesome opportunity.
I mean, this is an opportunity for these guys to play, like you said, the defending national champions, the #1 team in the country. You don't get those opportunities all that often. And so I know ever since this game has been on the schedule, especially some of those seniors or those super seniors that decided to come back, this is one they had circled because this is a fantastic opportunity. I know a lot of family members are coming as well to get the opportunity to see them play at Bryant Denny.
Mercer comes into Bryant Denny Stadium following a game last week when they beat Point University 69-0. And Koon said that was a great start for Mercer's goals this season, and playing against Alabama will actually help the Bears as they begin playing the SoCon.
You know, head coach Drew Cronick, we talked with him earlier this week, and he said, first off, we want to be a dominant team in the SoCon. That's what they want to do. And playing against a team like Alabama, you're going to have some things identified that you're weak in.
While Koon says that winning the game is obviously the goal, like it is for any game, this game would still be a success for Mercer, even if that doesn't happen, as long as they take things away from it.
So I think scoring, and let's just go, obviously they'd love to win the game. You play, in the famous words of longtime head coach Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. There's no other way to play it. But I think taking some positives would be able to take some things away that you say, okay, this worked against Alabama. We know if we run this against Furman, Wofford, Samford, that will definitely work.
Alabama and Mercer have played 3 times before today's game at Bryant Denny, with Alabama winning those games by a combined 96-0. But Koon says he believes the Bears will be able to put a couple of points on the board for the first time against Alabama. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Matthew Travis.
Thank you, Matthew. I have to tell you, I'm really impressed with their approach at Mercer. They're going to lose the football game, but they see the positives, and I can tell you this is a well-coached football team. All right, we'll be back with more CTKO right after this on WVUA 23.
Welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff, everyone. I'm Mike Royer, joined today by a face everyone knows, Mayor Walt Maddox of the city of Tuscaloosa. Mayor Maddox, always good to see you, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me, Mike.
They say what a difference a day makes, what a difference a year makes. A year ago, with football season approaching, we were trying to figure out, can they play? Can anybody come to the game? All kinds of issues. We're not out of the woods yet, but isn't this a much better start to the football season here in the Druid City?
Oh, it is. I mean, number one, just from an energy level that you see out there today. But number two, how many hotels are going to be filled today? How many restaurants are going to be filled? How many people are going to get a paycheck in a week or so because of game day weekend? That means a lot to a lot of people in our community beyond just the game of football itself.
As we speak, fans are gathering in Tuscaloosa. Tailgating's back. They didn't allow that on campus last year, as you know. Give us an idea. What does it mean financially? I know you don't have the exact number, but with the hotels and with the restaurants and 100,000 people in the stadium, thousands more outside, what kind of financial impact does a good football weekend have for your city?
Well, ultimately, it brings in about $20 million new dollars in your economy that would not have been spent otherwise. In terms of tax revenue at the end of the season, we net about $500,000 because, and people probably think we would net a lot more of that in terms of actual tax revenue. But the cost now of providing game day security, game day traffic, it's a totally different world, and 9/11 has changed so much of that. And so, it's today being the anniversary of 9/11, it requires us to have a tremendous amount of law enforcement, fire and rescue, and then our federal partners to be part of today's game day security.
Yeah, I know it does probably pretty much max out police, fire, rescue, city rescue workers. Is it kind of all hands on deck? I know you can't have everybody working, but more than usual on a Saturday.
We'll have nearly 600 city employees working at some point between the past 24 hours and the next 24 hours.
What would you have fans know that you want them to come have a great time? And if Alabama wins, and we always think Alabama will win, they're going to celebrate and have a good time. But they need to be respectful of the city and of the police and authorities. We don't want anybody getting hurt. What kind of a pitch would the mayor make to folks just to behave yourself and have fun?
I think be patient. I mean, beginning sometime yesterday, we became Alabama's largest city.
Yeah.
And we're going to remain Alabama's largest city really for the next few hours until probably past midnight.
Yeah.
And so our police, fire, public works, they all have a tremendous burden on them of taking on this. Just be patient. You're not going to get through traffic as quick as you want to. You're not going to be able to get in line as quick as you want to. But just be patient with it all and know that these individuals are there to ensure that your safety comes first, and then second, that you have a good time.
You had to ask many of your merchants last year to dial back, restrict hours, wear a mask. Some had to close for a while. Very tough restrictions. Are your businesses operating this year, this weekend, pretty much as normal as best they can?
Well, normal in terms of no COVID restrictions that are out there in place. Now,
Right.
I do know a lot of businesses are struggling with workforce, and we see this across the nation. There's just not enough a workforce out there to meet the demands of hoteliers and restaurateurs. And so that's another thing that's going to be on the private sector is going to be struggling with, is that making certain that they have enough employees to execute their functions at a high level. So be patient with that as well.
And if you try to rush, cut through traffic or something, you might pick up a minute, but overall you're going to get home about the same time.
Yes,
and just
you are.
be respectful. And if you drink, don't drive. That's advice the troopers give us. I'm sure you'd give our people that advice as well.
And people that are watching this and they're coming into the game, here's another trick. 80% roughly of those who are coming in from an Alabama football game are coming from the east. Try something. Park on the west side of the stadium. I guarantee you'll be able to get in and get out much quicker.
And is there parking available? You can park down by the Riverwalk. There's places there. There's other parking places on the west side and I think north of campus, if I've got it right, where you can catch buses and come right up to the stadium.
That's right. And in downtown Tuscaloosa, if you park at the intermodal facility or around the intermodal facility, you're just less than 1 mile from the stadium. Take you a nice stroll down Bryant Drive or University Boulevard. I guarantee you'll get in and you'll get out. Now, the good thing is we anticipate this game, you won't have as much traffic issues because if we can lose 10 to 15% of stadium attendees before kickoff ends, you generally have better traffic flow. But still, my tip to people who ask me, where should I park? Park downtown. I guarantee you'll get in and out much quicker.
And it's about a mile, if that. You get to some of the restaurants before you walk a mile.
That's right. And in fact, most of it's downhill on the way into the stadium.
That's right.
And then uphill coming back, but you really don't mind because most likely we won anyway.
That's right. It's over with. And if you park at the intermodal, which is a really nice parking area and easy to navigate, you walk by a bunch of good restaurants if you have time to eat or whatever, so it's a good walk.
And you can catch the transit system. So, you know, pay a small nominal fee and take the transit system and get in and out. So, you know, here's the thing that also, though, to remember. In a game like Mercer, a lot of times you don't have your normal ticket holders.
Yeah.
So it makes things a little bit more chaotic. Most fans who come on an annual basis have their own routines.
Yep.
Just be mindful that this time is going to be new for a lot of people. Build in an extra 30 minutes to an hour.
And since you became mayor, and you're in your fourth term?
Fifth term,
You're in your
unbelievable.
fifth term.
Yeah.
See, you're keeping track.
I think I was like 7 when they elected me mayor.
How has the relationship changed or improved over the years? Because the university needs the city and the city needs the university. You have to really have teamwork between the two, and I know you do.
Oh, we do. In terms of, you know, game day security is an amazing operation that involves not only UA and the city, but our state partners, our federal partners. That's just one small example. What it takes to keep water going into that stadium and out of that stadium, sewage in and out of that stadium. There's 1,000 different things that people don't realize, because when you put 100,000 people in 2 blocks, the logistics that are required of that are amazing. And again, we become Alabama's largest city.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's pretty cool. I get to be mayor of the 5th largest city, 360, some odd days a year. And then for a few others, I get to be the mayor of the largest city.
And with all the work that goes with that as well.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Maddox, thanks for your leadership. It's game day, exciting here in Tuscaloosa. We appreciate your leadership and your time today. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And most importantly, roll tide.
Roll tide. We'll go back to Gary now.
Thank you, Mike. And Mayor Maddox, Alabama wide receiver John Mechie, he's got some moves. How about the high step right there? Showing it off in the game against Miami. He and those wide receivers, they showed out. Remember high-stepping Deion Sanders, George Teague, and others. And Jerry Jeudy brought back those memories. When we return to Crimson Tide Kickoff, a final check of your game day forecast. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning in Tuscaloosa. Back after this. And the Walk of Champions recently got a new addition for the fans to check out. University of Alabama workers installed another granite inlay to commemorate the 2020 National Championship team. Boy, that Walk of Champions just keeps having to expand, but you can bet University of Alabama not disappointed about that. All right, let's get over to Gracie and have a final check on our game day forecast. Gracie.
Hey, Gary, let's take a closer look at that game day forecast. You're going out right now. It's going to be around 85 degrees for tailgating time, and then by kickoff, upper 80s is where we're going to be sitting, and then for the end of that game, lower 80s. We're going to fall back into some comfortable temperatures. Another look at this Walk of Champions. Just look how many more people are out there. They're getting ready. They're getting excited to go into the stadium. Temperatures across central Alabama in the low to mid 80s, and they're going to keep climbing throughout the day. So definitely stay hydrated if you're out there tailgating today. Lower dew points, though, making it feel more comfortable right here around 68. And that's all for weather.
All right, thank you, Gracie. And that's all for Crimson Tide Kickoff. A reminder, you can catch full post-game coverage of the game tonight with Matthew Travis on WVUA 23 News at 10. For all of us here at WVUA 23 and CTKO, have a great day. Enjoy the game, everybody. Roll Tide. Yeah, come here, Gracie.